Walter Green adjusted his jacket collar as he stepped out of the cab at Asheville Regional Airport. The summer morning sun warmed his shoulders, and the breeze carried the scent of jet fuel and coffee. His suitcase wheels clicked rhythmically along the pavement as he moved toward the terminal Heartlight with anticipation. He hadn't felt this kind of excitement in years, not since Abby's first birthday, when the entire family had gathered without tension, without obligation. This trip to Santa Catalina Island had been his idea. He'd even joked about it over dinner 3 months ago, calling it a final hurrah before my knees give out. Everyone had laughed. Derek, his son, raised a glass and said, "Dad, you're the best. We'll make this unforgettable." Monica, Derek's wife, nodded politely. Abby and Liam had jumped up from the table asking about dolphins and sandcastles. Walter had smiled and felt for the first time in a long while like he belonged. He reached the check-in counter, scanning the crowd for Derek and the others, spotting them near a pillar, Derek pacing, Monica adjusting Liam's backpack, and Abby twirling in place. Walter lifted his hand in greeting. Derek looked up, then quickly looked away. Odd. Usually his son would meet him halfway, help with the luggage. Walter's smile faltered, but he approached anyway. "Morning, everyone," he said brightly. Derek's eyes darted to Monica, then back to Walter. "Dad, we need to talk." Walter blinked. "Sure, what's up?" Derek took a deep breath, his voice lowering. "There's been a mistake. I forgot to book your ticket." The words didn't register at first. Walter chuckled nervously. "Come on, that's not funny." Derek didn't laugh. He looked at the departure board instead, hands deep in his jacket pockets. "I really did forget." Walter stared at him. "Derek, we planned this trip together. I gave you $20,000. You told me you were handling the bookings." "I know," Derek muttered. "It's just things got hectic. Work the kids." Walter looked over at Monica, who busied herself with Abby's braids. Monica avoided eye contact. "Let's just go to the counter and fix it," Walter said, already dragging his suitcase toward the check-in agent. "I'll pay for another ticket, first class even." Behind him, Derek sighed audibly but followed. "Good morning," Walter said to the woman at the counter. "I'm hoping to check available flights to Santa Catalina today. Name's Walter Green." The agent smiled and typed into her computer. Her brows knit slightly. "I don't see a reservation under that name. Are you sure the booking was made with this airline? I didn't book it myself." "My son did. Derek Green." "Ah," she said, typing again. "Yes, there's a reservation here. Derek Green, party of 4, 2 adults, 2 children, departing at 10:45. Walter's throat tightened. 4. "Yes, sir. Booked 6 weeks ago." Walter looked over his shoulder at Derek, who stood stiffly, arms crossed. 6 weeks ago," Walter repeated. "That's correct. No other names have been added since the original booking." His voice came out smaller than he intended. "Not even mine." The agent shook her head. "I'm afraid not." Monica stepped closer, pulling her suitcase. "We should get through security, Derek," she said. Walter turned back to the agent. "Is there any other flights today I can check?" she said gently, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. After a few minutes of typing and clicking, she looked back up. "I'm sorry, sir. Everything's full. There's a festival on the island this week. You might get a seat on the red-eye tomorrow, but it'll be close to $2,000. Walter opened his wallet, then paused. Behind him, Derek's voice broke through. "Dad, don't. It's not going to work. We can't wait." Walter turned slowly. "You're leaving me here." Derek shifted uneasily. "We'll call you from the hotel. The kids will tell you all about it," Monica added quickly. "We'll bring something back for you." Abby looked up. "Grandpa, aren't you coming?" There was silence, the kind that fills your ears like static. Walter bent down and touched Abby's cheek. "Not today, sweetheart." He straightened, turned to the agent. "Thank you for your help." She looked genuinely sympathetic. "I wish I could do more." Walter nodded. His suitcase handle was suddenly heavy in his hand. He walked away slowly, deliberately, not looking back. Outside, the taxi line stretched around the curb. The world continued. Cars honked, announcements buzzed, planes lifted into the sky. Walter stood still amid the movement, breathing carefully. He had pictured this day so differently. Laughter at the gate, Monica offering him gum, Derek making small talk, Abby tugging on his sleeve asking when they'd see dolphins. Instead, he was alone. The cab pulled up. The driver stepped out, loaded the suitcase without comment. Walter slid into the back seat, the leather cold against his back. "Where to?" the driver asked. Walter hesitated. Then home, I guess, wherever that still is. They pulled away from the curb, and the airport faded in the rearview mirror. Walter didn't speak. He stared out the window, the mountains in the distance softened by heat haze. $20,000, months of planning, dinners where he'd smiled through stories written check after check, all of it just to be left standing at a terminal like an unwanted package. He wasn't even angry, not yet, just numb. The driver glanced at him. Rough morning, Walter offered a humorless chuckle. You could say that. They rode in silence, the driver respectful of his passenger's mood. As they merged onto the highway, Walter finally spoke again. You ever realize too late that people don't see you the way you thought? All the time, the driver said. Family's good at that. Walter nodded slowly. Yeah, they are. Asheville welcomed him back with its lush greenery and winding roads. The taxi pulled into his driveway, the house looking just as he left it, neat, proud, waiting. That'll be $47.50, the driver said. Walter handed him $60. Keep the change. The driver tipped his cap. Whatever happens, sir, I hope they regret it. Walter stepped inside. The air was still. The faint scent of Grace's old potpourri lingered in the hallway. He set his suitcase down, stood in the foyer, and exhaled deeply. Everything had changed. He just didn't know yet how far he'd be willing to go to take control of it all. The hum of the taxi's engine faded as Walter Green stood on his front porch, keys dangling uselessly in his hand. He unlocked the door, stepped inside, and was greeted by the stillness that only an empty house could hold. The hallway smelled faintly of lemon polish and thyme. A stack of unopened mail leaned against the entry table exactly where he had left it. He didn't drop his suitcase right away. Instead, he walked into the living room and sat down in his usual chair by the window. Grace's old knitting basket still tucked beneath it, untouched since the winter she passed. He stared through the glass at the quiet neighborhood where children rode bikes, dogs barked behind fences, and sprinkler systems ticked rhythmically over bright green lawns. It was all so normal. And yet, he was not. His phone buzzed, a text from Derek. We're boarding. Talk soon. Walter read it twice. No apology, no explanation, just a line as flat as an automated receipt. He put the phone face down on the coffee table and rubbed his temples. His thoughts looped one after another. How could they leave me? How long had they planned this? Then a sharper one. How many times had they done this before, and I just didn't see it? The realization didn't crash like a wave. It crept in, slow and cold. He thought back to the family dinners, how Monica had always found an excuse for him to stay home when they went out. How Claire once gently suggested he might enjoy a quiet hotel room rather than the noisy family cabin last Christmas. How Derek constantly reassured him, Dad, don't stress the details. We'll handle it. They'd been easing him out for years. He stood abruptly, needing motion. In the kitchen, he filled the kettle and set it on the stove. The gas clicked, then caught with a soft whoosh. As he waited, he opened the drawer where he kept receipts and travel documents. A neat man by habit, Walter had organized every payment, every confirmation. He pulled out a manila folder labeled Catalina Trip. Inside, printouts of wire transfers, notes from planning calls, even a receipt for the family planning dinner at Ridgeview Bistro. That night, he remembered Monica had ordered the wine, Claire had picked the dessert, and he had picked up the bill. He found the hotel confirmation Derek had emailed him weeks ago. It listed the rooms booked for Derek Green, Monica Green, Abby Green, Liam Green. No mention of Walter. But what stunned him most, the reservation included a fifth guest, Grace Green. His breath caught. Grace had been gone 3 years. Why would Derek list her? He sat down hard at the kitchen table, the folder trembling in his hands. Either Derek had recycled an old booking template or they hadn't planned to include him at all. The kettle whistled, but Walter let it scream a little longer before shutting it off. He poured the water over a chamomile tea bag, hands steady now. Something had shifted. The ache in his chest was still there, but beneath it something else had begun to grow. Clarity. He opened his laptop and began typing Santa Catalina Island resort reservations. Within moments, he was on the phone with a front desk agent. Yes, he said calmly. This is Walter Green. I need to cancel a reservation under Derek Green. There was a pause. I'm sorry, sir. That booking is non-refundable. I'm aware, Walter said. But I paid for it, all of it. I have the transaction records. The woman hesitated again. Give me a moment, please. He waited, sipping his tea. The bitterness cut through the warmth. Sir, she said, returning. Yes, I see that the credit card used was in your name. We can cancel, but only partial refunds apply. I don't need a refund, Walter said. I just need to make sure that moving forward I'm not paying for anything related to that family booking. She cleared her throat. We'll note it immediately. Good. He ended the call and closed the laptop slowly. His phone buzzed again. Another message from Derek. Everyone's excited. The kids miss you already. Walter didn't respond. He deleted the message. He didn't speak for the rest of the evening. No TV, no music, just the ticking of the wall clock and the distant hum of crickets beyond the screen door. The next morning, Walter rose early. He made himself breakfast eggs over toast coffee from an old percolator Grace had loved. He sat down at the dining table, a yellow legal pad in front of him, the same kind he'd used in his engineering days. He started writing, dates of conversations, transfer amounts, quotes from Monica, "You should rest more, Dad." Claire's suggestion, "Walter, you'd be more comfortable in a private room." Derek's excuses, "We're handling it." Every detail, every breadcrumb of exclusion he wrote down. Mid-morning, he picked up the phone and dialed a number from his contacts he hadn't used in nearly a year. Raymond Ellis Law Office, a voice answered. "This is Walter Green," he said. "I'd like to schedule a consultation regarding my will." There was a pause. "Mr. Green, of course. Mr. Ellis has availability this Thursday at 2 p.m. Perfect. May I ask the nature of the update?" Walter's voice was steady. "Revisions to beneficiaries." After the call, Walter went to the closet and pulled out a navy blue suit he hadn't worn since Grace's memorial. He brushed it off, hung it neatly on the bedroom door. Then he went out to mow the lawn. It was a hot day, the kind that made the air shimmer over pavement. But Walter worked steadily, pushing the mower with slow, deliberate movements. The sound drowned out thought, which suited him. Neighbors waved. He nodded back. To them, he was still the quiet man on the corner, the friendly widower with a tidy yard. No one knew that something inside him had hardened not into hatred, but resolve. Later that night, he reread Grace's old letters. She had a way of seeing through people, especially their son. "You always want to believe the best in Derek." One letter read, written during a difficult Christmas. "But you can't give him the benefit of the doubt forever. One day you'll have to decide if you're being kind or just allowing yourself to be hurt." He folded the letter carefully and slid it back into the envelope. That night, Walter slept soundly. No dreams, no tension in his shoulders. He had made a decision, and for the first time since the airport, he no longer felt powerless. The clouds over Charlotte hung low, casting a soft gray light over the glass buildings of downtown. Walter Green stood in front of the Ellis Law Group building, a mid-rise of brushed steel and glass, nestled between a florist and a coffee shop. His reflection stared back at him from the entrance, navy blue suit, polished shoes, hair neatly combed. He looked like a man with purpose. Inside, the lobby was cool and quiet, the scent of fresh coffee and copy paper faint in the air. The receptionist greeted him with a warm smile. "Mr. Green, Mandata, Ellis, we'll see you in just a moment." Walter nodded and took a seat on a leather couch, his briefcase resting on his lap. Inside were three things: a folder of documents, a worn photo of Grace, and a draft letter he'd written the night before. When Raymond Ellis stepped out to greet him, he looked just as Walter remembered, gray-haired, well-tailored, with a voice that carried calm authority. "Walter, good to see you. I wish it were under better circumstances." They shook hands and entered a sunlit office with framed degrees and shelves of neatly aligned law books. A pot of coffee sat steaming on a side table. "You still drink it black?" Raymond asked. "Always." They settled in, and Raymond leaned back in his chair. "Tell me what's on your mind." Walter opened the folder and laid the documents out: receipts, bank statements, notes from conversations. "I want to rewrite my will," he said plainly. "Effective immediately." Raymond scanned the first page, his brow furrowing slightly. "You've been compiling all this?" "Since the moment they left me at the airport." Raymond looked up, concern flickering across his face. "Walter, are you sure this isn't just anger speaking?" Walter's gaze didn't waver. "No. This is clarity." He tapped a page showing the transfer of $20,000 from his account to Derek's. "That money was for a family trip, not a getaway that excluded me. They planned this without me, used me." Raymond nodded slowly. "All right. Who do you want named in the new version?" Walter exhaled. "No one in the family." Raymond raised his eyebrows. "Not even the grandchildren?" Walter hesitated. "Not for now, Not until I know they're not being shaped by the same values. He reached into the briefcase and pulled out the photograph of Grace. She was sitting on the front porch laughing, a blanket draped over her knees. I want the money to go towards something she'd be proud of. A scholarship for engineering students, preferably those from modest backgrounds, and a fund for elderly care, especially those isolated like I was starting to become. Raymond leaned forward. That's doable. Very doable. And smart. I also want a video recording, Walter said. Of me reading the will. I want no ambiguity. Raymond nodded. We'll record it here. Our legal witness and notary will be present. Good. They worked for over 2 hours, drafting, adjusting, notarizing. Raymond's assistant brought in a witness and a camera was set up at the end of the long conference table. Walter sat straight, at his voice steady as he read the final version of the will. I, Walter Green, being of sound mind and memory, do hereby declare this to be my last will and testament. His tone never wavered. When he reached the exclusion clause, he slowed slightly. And I hereby remove my son Derek Green and any direct descendants from eligibility to inherit or control any portion of my estate due to deliberate emotional manipulation, financial misuse, and willful exclusion. I make this decision not out of malice but to uphold my own dignity and the values of truth and fairness. The room was silent when he finished. The witness signed. The notary sealed. The camera shut off. Raymond walked him back to the lobby where the receptionist was arranging folders on the front desk. Walter, Raymond said quietly, "This is heavy stuff. Are you all right with how final this feels?" Walter looked out the tall glass windows at the gray Charlotte skyline. "I'm not angry, Ray. Not anymore. I just refuse to be invisible." Raymond gave a thoughtful nod. "They won't take this lightly. I don't expect them to. But I won't be the one who disappears to keep peace anymore." As Walter reached the door, Raymond called out, "When do you want them to receive it?" Walter turned. "The moment their plane lands, I want them to be met with the truth before they even get their luggage." Raymond smiled, just a little. "Understood." Back outside, Walter walked slowly down the sidewalk, passing a bookstore. Grace used to love, then a park bench where they once sat sharing ice cream. A young couple sat there now, holding hands. Life moved on, and he let it. At the train station, he bought a ticket back to Asheville. As he waited, he took out his phone, opened his voicemail. Messages from Derek stacked up. "Dad, where are you? We're worried. Call me. You're being ridiculous. You don't just cut off your family." He deleted each one. On the train ride home, he looked out at the rolling hills and long stretches of pine forest. He thought about Grace, how she used to talk about legacy, not as money left behind, but values passed forward. This decision was his legacy. He'd always believed in order and structure, in calm, but sometimes he realized you had to set fire to something just to see what remained unburned. The Asheville Regional Airport bustled with the usual rhythm of returning vacationers, parents pulling sleepy toddlers, teens dragging surfboards, retirees scanning for shuttle signs. Among them, Walter Green stood still, centered and composed, a quiet pillar in a sea of motion. He wore the same navy blue suit from his meeting with Raymond Ellis, freshly pressed, shoes polished. He didn't pace, didn't fidget. He simply waited. In one hand, he held a manila envelope. In the other, his phone, which displayed the airline's flight tracker, Flight 892. On time. His heart did not race. Not this time. The sliding doors hissed open as passengers from the Santa Catalina flight trickled in. Abby and Liam appeared first, holding stuffed dolphins and matching shell necklaces, their faces sun-kissed and beaming. Grandpa Abby shouted, spotting him. She ran straight into his arms, nearly knocking the envelope from his hand. "I missed you," she said, wrapping her arms tight around his waist. Walter smiled, hugging her gently. "I missed you too, sweetheart." Liam followed, a little slower, but grinning. "We saw a sea lion. It sneezed and scared Mommy." Walter chuckled softly. "Wish I'd seen that." Behind them came Derek and Monica, rolling matching suitcases. Monica wore oversized sunglasses and an expression of thinly veiled surprise. Derek's eyes locked onto Walter immediately. "Dad," he said, slowing his step. "What are you doing here?" Walter straightened. "Meeting you. I thought it'd be nice to welcome you home." Derek's brows pulled together. "After what you pulled?" "Ignoring our calls." Walter ignored the tone. "You received my voicemail, I assume." "We did." "We did," Monica said sharply. "Something about legal matters?" Walter held up the manila envelope. "This is for you, from my attorney." Raymond Ellis stepped forward from where he had been waiting a few feet behind. Dressed in a crisp gray suit, he looked every bit the seasoned professional. Mr. Green. Raymond greeted Derek. I'm Raymond Ellis, legal counsel to Walter Green. This is a witnessed copy of his newly executed last will and testament. You'll want to read it thoroughly. Derek's face drained of color. You brought your lawyer to the airport? This is the only time I knew I'd see you all together, Walter said plainly, and I wanted no confusion. Monica reached for the envelope before Derek could flipping it open as she pulled off her sunglasses. She skimmed quickly, her lips parting. Then she froze. Oh my God, she breathed. You cut him out. Derek grabbed the paper's, eyes scanning the lines. This is a joke, a legal scare tactic. No joke, Raymond said. Signed, witnessed, and video recorded. Filed with the county clerk this morning. You're disinheriting me. Derek's voice rose. You disinherited yourself, Walter replied, voice calm. The moment you planned a family vacation and left me standing at a terminal. That wasn't intentional, Derek said, voice shaking now. It was a mix-up. Walter tilted his head. Booked 6 weeks in advance. 4 tickets. No room for error. Dad, this is insane. Walter turned to Monica. Did Grace mean nothing to you? You listed her name in the reservation. She's been gone 3 years. Monica flinched. That wasn't... I was never meant to go, Walter said. You thought I'd just accept it, fade away quietly. You didn't expect me to stand back up. Derek stepped forward, fists clenched. You think this is justice? You're throwing away your family over one mistake, Walter's voice dropped. This wasn't one mistake. It was a pattern, a quiet erasure. And it ends today. Monica pulled Abby closer, suddenly aware of the stares gathering around them. Raymond cleared his throat. We suggest you review the documents at home. If you choose to contest, know that we are fully prepared. Derek looked like he wanted to yell, but then glanced around. People were watching, whispering. A security guard stood nearby, subtly shifting attention their way. You'll regret this, Derek said through gritted teeth. Walter didn't respond. Instead, he crouched to eye level with Abby. You be good, all right, he said gently. And remember what I always told you. Abby nodded. Be kind, even when no one's watching. He smiled. Exactly. He stood, nodded to Raymond, and turned to leave. Behind him, Derek called out, We're still your family. Walter didn't turn. Then you should have treated me like it. He and Raymond walked toward the exit, the heavy summer light pouring through the glass doors. Nicely done, Raymond murmured. Walter exhaled slowly. I didn't want to fight. I wanted clarity. Outside, the heat hit him full in the face. He welcomed it. It reminded him he was still here, still standing. As they walked toward the parking lot, Raymond asked, Do you want to get lunch or just head home? Walter shook his head. I think I'll walk for a bit, let it settle. Raymond nodded, handed him the car keys. I'll call tomorrow to follow up. Walter slipped the keys into his pocket and turned back toward the sidewalk. He walked slowly, letting the adrenaline fade. Around him, families embraced, kids laughed, taxi doors slammed shut. Life carried on. But something had shifted. He had drawn a line. And for once, he wasn't the one left behind it. The sun was low in the sky when Walter Green stepped back onto the front porch of his Asheville home. The wooden floorboards creaked beneath his shoes, and the familiar scent of cut grass and honeysuckle filled the air. He paused for a moment, watching the breeze shift the wind chimes that Grace had hung up years ago. They clinked softly, just enough sound to remind him the world was still turning. He unlocked the door and stepped inside, greeted by the quiet he knew so well. But it felt different now, not empty, not lonely, peaceful. He placed his suit jacket over the back of a chair, removed his shoes, and walked barefoot into the kitchen. The house held its usual warmth, a comforting stillness. He brewed a pot of coffee, not out of habit, but out of intention. Every movement had purpose now. His phone buzzed on the counter. Voicemail from Derek. He ignored it. He sat at the table, drinking his coffee, slowly letting the bitterness settle on his tongue. He glanced at the refrigerator where Abby's crayon drawing still clung by a magnet stick figures under a rainbow. The words, me plus Grandpa equals best buds. He left it there. After finishing his coffee, he opened the laptop. There was an email from Raymond Ellis. Everything filed and confirmed. Grace Green Engineering Fund is now active. First round of applicants expected in September. Will update re-endowment transfer. Walter read it twice, then clicked reply. Thank you. Let's add a note to the application preference to first-generation college students. and those raised by grandparents. He clicked send, then leaned back, letting his eyes rest on the ceiling fan spinning slowly above. That night, the house was still. The silence didn't weigh on him like before. It wrapped around him like an old quilt. He slept without interruption, the kind of deep sleep that only comes after certainty. The next morning he woke early. He shaved, showered, and dressed in jeans and a flannel shirt. He cooked scrambled eggs and toast just for himself and sat at the window watching the neighborhood come to life. Joggers passed, dogs barked, sprinklers danced across manicured lawns. His phone rang again. Derek. He declined the call. Later he opened his voicemail, listening not to respond but to understand. Dad, this has gone too far. You're hurting the kids. We were going to invite you later. The trip was complicated. Monica's upset. Abby's confused. You don't have to do this. Walter didn't flinch. He deleted the message. He spent the afternoon reorganizing the basement, old tools, paint cans, garden supplies. He boxed up things that no longer served a purpose and labeled them for donation. When he found a box marked Christmas, Grace, he paused, brushing dust off the top. Inside were ornaments, handwritten cards, and a ceramic angel she had insisted on putting atop the tree every year. He held it for a long time, then placed it gently back inside. By late afternoon, Raymond called. The endowment's locked. First disbursement will go to UNC Asheville. They're thrilled. They want to meet you, actually. I'll visit, Walter said. Quietly. No ribbon cutting. Understood. There's one more thing, Walter added. I want a portion of the estate set aside for elderly outreach, meals, companionship visits, even transportation. People like me left behind. Raymond was quiet a moment. Then Grace would have liked that. I think so. After the call, Walter sat down at his old roll-top desk in the study and began to write a letter. Not an email, not a message, a handwritten letter. To Abby, you're probably wondering why I wasn't there with you on the island. I hope one day you'll understand that it wasn't my choice. But what matters more is that I'll always be your grandpa. You have a kind heart, Abby. Hold on to that, even when others don't. Someday, if you want to talk, my door will always be open. Not for apologies, just for you. Love, Grandpa Walt. He folded it carefully and placed it in an envelope. He didn't mail it, not yet. That evening, as twilight settled over Asheville, Walter mowed the lawn. Neighbors waved. He waved back. He trimmed the hedges, swept the walk, and then sat on the porch with a glass of iced tea watching the sky change colors. There was no dramatic ending, no thunderous vindication, just calm. He had made his decision, and that finally was enough. October in Asheville painted the trees gold and rust, the crisp air carrying the scent of leaves and wood smoke. Walter Green pulled his coat tighter as he walked across the campus of UNC Asheville. The engineering building stood proudly ahead, its new sign gleaming under the morning sun. Grace Green Engineering Fund, sponsored lab and learning center. He paused, taking in the sight. Students walked past with backpacks and coffee cups, some chatting, some rushing to class. None of them knew him. And that was exactly how he wanted it. Inside the building, a small plaque near the entrance bore Grace's name. No quotes, no grand language, just her name and the year she graduated, 1963. Walter brushed his fingers gently over the edge of the plaque, then moved on. A young woman stood near the whiteboard in one of the classrooms, nervously reviewing notes. She glanced up, startled. "Can I help you?" she asked. Walter smiled. "Just visiting." She hesitated, then smiled back. "They told us someone important was coming. Are you the donor?" He shook his head. "Just someone who believes in people like you." She stepped forward, extending a hand. "I'm Marissa, first-year engineering. No one in my family's ever been to college." Walter took her hand. "That's going to change with you." Her eyes lit up. "Thanks to the scholarship, it already has." Walter nodded, said goodbye, and walked back out into the cool sunlight. He didn't stay for any speeches. He declined the invitation to the small reception. He just walked, hands in his coat pockets, through the rows of autumn-colored trees until he reached his car. Later that afternoon, he stopped by a quiet cafe near the outskirts of town. The barista greeted him by name. "Hey, Mr. Green." Usual, and he nodded. A black coffee and a slice of pumpkin bread. He sat by the window and watched the leaves swirl. From his pocket, he pulled out a folded note. It was a text message written in a child's simple phrasing, copied by hand. "Grandpa, I miss you. Can we talk soon, Abby?" He hadn't responded yet, but he carried the note like a compass. At home, he placed the message on the refrigerator next to her drawing. Then he sat at his desk and opened his journal. October 12th. The lab is open. Grace would have liked it. I didn't cry, though I thought I would. A student reminded me why we do any of this, because someone believed in us once, and we want to pass that forward. He closed the book and turned toward the living room window where late afternoon light spilled in. The house didn't feel empty anymore. It felt full with memory, yes, but also with purpose. Every room had meaning again, even the silence. That evening, he reheated leftover stew, poured a glass of water, and set the table for one. As he ate, he listened to the radio-old jazz, soft and worn, and let himself enjoy the simple rhythm of a meal prepared and savored without rush. When he finished, he washed the dishes and stepped outside to the porch. The stars were just starting to appear pinpricks in the fading blue sky. He sat down, pulled the blanket over his lap, and exhaled slowly. He didn't know if Derek would ever understand. He didn't know if Monica cared to. He wasn't waiting for apologies anymore. But Abby had sent a message. That meant something. He would write her again, carefully. Not to explain everything, but to leave a trail back to him should she ever want to follow it. The wind rustled through the trees. The porch light flicked on automatically. Somewhere nearby, a dog barked and someone laughed. Walter smiled. This was his life now. Not loud, not grand, but real, and lived entirely on his own terms. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.